Hi everybody, and welcome to another video brought to you by PLCGurus.NET. So a quick plug for our blog site and forums. If you haven't already done so, please head on over to https://PLCGurus.net and become an active member in our community. Okay, so you're watching our Studio 5000 Essentials video series, and today what I wanted to do was take a look at the trending features of Studio 5000 Logic's environment. It is a very useful, very powerful tool by which you can set up trends to troubleshoot, analyze, measure dynamic responses of your system. So I do highly recommend using this tool where it makes sense to. So part of the challenge I had today was thinking about, what do I want to trend? I mean, we're running in an emulated environment here. So what I decided to do, and the code here you're looking at, is I decided to generate logic that basically is going to emulate a function generator. So, and specifically, it's going to emulate a sine wave on our trend. Okay, so somewhat interesting anyway. And you can see here, we'll just step through the logic very quickly. So here is just the simple process start, process stop bits that I'm going to be controlling with my emulated physical. I guess that's kind of an oxymoron, but our I/O here, our simulated I/O here. And then I have a timer set up that is basically going to be the sample time. So it's the rate at which I am generating a new data point in my sine wave, okay? And once that timer is done, I'm going to go ahead and use a compute instruction to generate the sine wave using the sine function. So you can see in the comments here, I have the sine function, of course, is a function of omega t in radians minus the phase shift. Okay, where omega, I should clarify what omega is in case you don't know. Omega is the angular position. Okay. So we can adjust the amplitude and frequency and shift by basically adjusting the scale and offset factors. We're going to go ahead and run that through our sine function, and then that result is going to end up in the function result tag here. So this tag is one of the ones that we want to map into our trend, okay? And at the same time, I'm also going to go ahead and log every time this timer is done to give me a time index. And this is going to become useful when we look at the XY trend. So there's two basic types of trends that we can have in Studio 5000. It's a standard trend they call, and an XY plot. So we're going to use this as the X-axis time index, okay? I hope that's clear. And then, of course, if our process stopped, all I'm doing here is just moving zeros and clearing all of these registers out. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and download this project now into our emulated processor. And if you haven't watched the preceding videos, of course, I highly recommend that you do so. I mean, I do tend to build on these videos as we move along, but specifically if you haven't watched the early videos on how to set up the emulator, how to set up your communication path, all that good stuff, please watch those ones for sure. Okay, so let's just go ahead. My path is defined, so I should just be able to download this into my emulated processor, and we'll go ahead and click the download button. Okay, and let's go ahead and put the processor in run mode so our outputs are enabled. Okay, so there we go. Our process is stopped. So I guess the next step is to go ahead and set up a trend. So to set up or create a new trend, you want to go over to your controller organizer window and right-click New Trend. Okay, so let's give this one a name. So I'm just going to call it, I don't know, sine wave. Very unique. And we'll click Next. And I did create these tags as program scope tags. So remember, the little icon on the processor means you've defined the tag as a controller scope tag. And then you can go ahead and also define tags as program scope tags in their respective programs. All right, so I've defined them as program scope tags. And there you go. You can see all of the tags in my list. So the ones we are interested in, again, is the function result tag. So I'm going to select that and add that to my tags to trend. And let's go ahead and add the time index tag as well, because that's going to be the x-axis in our XY trend. Okay, so let's add that guy. And that's it. Those are the only two we're going to trend right now. I'm going to click finish. And there you go. So it's already kind of used a predefined template to very quickly generate a trend for you. So pretty nice. And again, there is a multitude of options and customizations you can do for these trends. And I'm not going to go into any detail. I mean, you can feel free to play with these settings to your heart's content. I just want to get to the nitty gritty, look at the two different trends, and do something useful with them, okay? So there you go. If you needed to change the name, you can just go right into there. And again, I got to this dialog by right-clicking on the chart and going to chart properties. So the general tab, here you can define the chart style, standard or XY. We'll start with the standard, why not? And then to display, again, you can change the time format, a lot of customizations. And like I say, I'm not going to go through all of these. Please play with them, get a good feel for them. If you're not sure, you know, I always, especially for these little dialog boxes, you know, the help is good for these dialog boxes and gives you a good description of what each thing in this dialog box is and its primary function. So if you're ever not sure, remember that magic help button there. That's always, I use it all the time. And then pens. This is an important tab. This is where the pens actually show up, or the tags that you're mapping to those pens show up. And you can see the function result and the time index tag there. I'm going to go ahead and change blue. I don't know if blue is going to show up great on black background. So let's go ahead and just, I don't know, let's make it yellow. Then it'll really show up. Okay. And then the time index green. Well, you know what? The time index is again, we're going to use it for the XY. So I'm just going to turn it off. We don't actually need to see it. It is going to become the horizontal axis in our XY trend. Okay, when we get there. And then again, you can specify the type, whether the type is analog. Of course, this one in this case is digital full width. This one I'm going to make digital because it is just a double integer type. And then the style, I mean, you can change the line styles. I mean, again, lots of customizations. If you want to use a marker at each point, your min and max settings, this will become, we'll look at this a little closer in a minute. If you want to apply some units, descriptions, etc. So, like, again, lots of things you can do here. I'm going to apply because we did make some changes there. And you can see that the time index tag actually disappeared there. Okay. And then you can customize the x-axis. So again, if you want, you can define the time span of the window you want to see. Actually, the yellow, you can hardly see those numbers. You know what? Let's go back and change that to something a little more pronounced for the gray. We're adjusting for the black, but the gray doesn't seem to show up very well. Let's try like an orange. Let's try that. Apply. Wow, that's better. Okay. So anyways, back to the x-axis. So you can define the time span when you're doing a standard plot of the time span of the trend that you want to capture. Okay, so let's just go ahead and increase that. Why not? Let's go to let's go to 30 seconds. And then you can adjust the number of grid lines. I mean, let's go ahead and, I don't know, move it to 5 just so you can see that. It added another major grid line. If you wanted to add minor grid lines, you can go ahead and do that. Those would be the minors in between here. And then the y-axis, again, now you can define the range of the y-axis here. So you can choose automatic. I think we'll start with that. And that will just automatically range the y-axis for you, which is okay. But you'll see that it's not something I typically like to do, just because everything kind of just goes top to bottom. And you'll see it in a minute. And then you have a preset where you can use the actual min-max settings from the pens tab. So back over here, you can define a min and max setting and just choose them in your y-axis range here. Or you can just define a custom one here, you know, whatever you choose to do. And then, of course, there's the scale options. You can each pin on an independent scale. Again, lots of settings to play with. Let's just change that just so you see it. Okay, great. And then if you want to customize the template it's using, sampling, if you want to save this out or you're saving this data to a hard drive, you can certainly do that. And then you can define start and stop triggers as well. So if let's say you have an intermittent problem in the field, it's not ideal always to sit at a machine 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, it's impossible. You just can't do it. So, trending can become a very important and powerful troubleshooting tool in your toolbox in order to, locate those intermittent type problems that you think you have a good idea of what's going on. Maybe it's some switch in the field that you think may not be activating consistently 100% repeatable. Well, now you can set up some trends and trigger those trends to activate on certain events, times a day, what have you. So I hope that makes sense. Start and stop triggers. Okay, we're not going to play with these today, but you can certainly build some trigger logic here. All right, so I think that's sufficient for what we want to do just to get started with our sine wave. So I'm just going to click OK there. And let's head back on over to our logic. Okay, so let's go ahead and start generating a sine wave here. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle our process start PB by hitting it over here. And you can see that's now the process start bit is enabled. And we are doing something. So we are generating results in our function result tag. And we are incrementing our time index. Okay, wonderful. So let's go over to our sine wave and let's go ahead and run it. And you can see now it is doing something. So you see what I mean here? When we use a best fit, it always goes top to bottom like that, which is, I mean, it's okay. But I generally like to, I don't know, sometimes it gets distracting. Anyhow, but you can see here, it's actually, we're doing a standard plot. We're generating data points every 100 milliseconds using our timer. But if we go back to our chart properties and we go over to the sampling, remember when we initially created the trend, we set up a sample of 10 milliseconds. And this is why you're seeing this little steps in the sine wave, because we're actually sampling faster than we're generating new data points. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Either way. Okay? So let's do that. So what I want to do is, maybe I don't like it doing what it's doing here. So let's go back to our y-axis. And this time I'm going to choose a custom pen. So all our values are between 0 and 1. So let's just go ahead, just so you can see it, and generate a custom range. Okay? And you can see now our sine wave is a little more, I guess, focused and centered in between our -2 and +2 value here. Okay? All right, so pretty cool here. We've effectively created a function generator that will generate or output a sine wave that we can adjust the amplitude and frequency. Well, let's just try that. Let's double click this and let's just make this a little bit larger and see what the impact is on our sine wave. So I just made that from 0.1 to 0.2, and let's look at that. So you can see here our frequency now has increased. Okay, do you see that? Okay, good. So you can play with that once you kind of set that this logic up in your programming environment. Okay, I'm gonna put it back. All right, and you know what? If you created a tag to hold that value, you wouldn't have to edit the rung every time. Anyway, okay. So let's go back to our sine wave, and there you go. I've just adjusted it back, so you see our frequency has changed, and it's doing that nice sine wave for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually change this now. Actually, let's stop the trend. Oh, you see that? Oh, that's an interesting one. I'm going to pause the trend just to show you that feature. So you, just like an oscilloscope, you can just click on the trend and add a cursor to the trend. So this is useful if you wanted to measure something, okay? And if I right click now and go active value bar, I can actually find the delta, and I can click somewhere else and it will find the delta between data points or two data points. Okay, do you see that? Okay, there's my delta. You see the delta, what is it, 8 milliseconds there. Okay, so you can see that's kind of a useful, so very similar to an oscilloscope. All right, great. So let's go ahead, and I want to change the chart properties, and I'm going to change this to an XY plot. And now we're going to be using the time index tag that we are generating. You're going to see we're going to get a much smoother curve because now every data point and the sample rate are going to be in line, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're just going to change that x-axis to time index. I'm going to click apply, and you can see now it's going to be using the values that I have in my time index tag. So let's just, do you want to start from the beginning? Yeah, let's start from the beginning. So I'm going to stop the process, just toggle that back, and let's go ahead and let's start our trend before we run it. Let's stop that, and let's start it now. Okay, so our trend is just running along, okay, at 0. It's not doing anything at this point because our time index isn't doing anything. And let's go ahead and start the process. All right, now it's starting to do something. Okay, what is it doing? All right, let's go back into our chart properties and take a look. You know what? Let's go to automatic fit there. Oh, there we go. So now it's doing something for us. Okay, good. So the XY plot, I do recommend using the automatic when you're doing an XY plot. Okay, for some reason it just doesn't like it when you're on a custom. I don't know. All right. Anyways, so now you can see that we're generating that nice smooth sine wave. And again, we can adjust the frequency and the period and the amplitude as we see fit. But there you go is an XY plot. And we could go ahead and change the x-axis range. I don't know, maybe we want to go, let's go 1 minute. Let's see what that does. So now it's going to squeeze those sine waves into that 1 minute range. Okay, there we go. All right, so I hope that helps you a little bit. If I go 1 second, oh, there we go. So now it's just way too fast. Okay, let's go to 10. And again, I'm just playing around. You can play around to your heart's content here. Let's see this. We're generating a nice sine wave, and you can place a cursor on there anywhere you like. And there you go. We've effectively created an oscilloscope. Great. Okay, so I hope this helps you at least get started with trending. And again, this is very useful when you want to model your process, okay, or troubleshoot something that's intermittent in the field. Actually, you know what? Let's do something. Why don't we do something discrete? We're doing something analog. Let's create a new trend very quickly, and let's just call it discrete IO. And let's say you have a funky switch in the field. I'm going to click next, and let's go ahead. I don't know. Let's pick something that's discrete. Let's pick our sample time. So let's say we want to trigger or we want to trend when this bit is done. Okay, and I'm going to add that, and we're going to click finish, and there's our trend, and we should be able to get something straight away. Oh, there you go. There's our sample timer triggering. So now let's take a look. Let's go to the chart properties. Let's go to the general. We're using standard, which is good. Let's make this smaller because remember we're triggering every 100 milliseconds. Can we go 0.5? No, we can't. Okay, that's fine. So, okay, now let's go back to our y-axis, and let's define that custom range. Remember, this is going to be between 0 and 1. Let's go -2 and 2. Why not? There we go. So now we can see a discrete pulse train going on here based on our sample timer. I mean, we just picked something that was quick and easy and convenient, but you can do the same type of thing to any discrete input or output device connected to your machine. Okay, so I hope you found this video informative in the use of trending. So again, please do become an active community member or a member in our community by joining us over at https://PLCGurus.NET. It's completely free, and we hope to talk to you soon. Okay, thank you very much for watching.